JKB back with another episode. Today I'm reviewing Blair Witch. I got to go to the world premiere here in Toronto. Thank you so much to my roommate who got me into that. It was such an amazing experience to be able to go to the fucking world premiere of Blair Witch and see the director and have a Q&A with the cast after. However, I didn't get to get my question in, but I did tweet out to the writer and he did answer something for me, which leads me into spoiler-free zone. I will go into spoilers at the end of this, and by all means, I will give you a fucking warning, because if I didn't and just said the Blair Witch is a hooker horse that has long hair and neighs at the end of the movie, you'd be pissed, but that's not what happened. So spoilers will happen at the end, I will warn you. Let me say it again for you people out there that are much slower. Spoilers at the end of the review. Now, what is Blair Witch? Blair Witch is a sequel to Blair Witch Project, and it completely overlooks Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows, which was a complete and utter shit show, should have never been made. Horrible, horrible, horrible idea. With this, they've decided to go with a reboot. With the reboot, of course, you get a lot of the same from the original. Now, not going to spoil anything in the beginning of this review, which means there's not too much to talk about, other than the fact that I can say a few different things here. If you've watched the trailer, which I highly suggest you don't do going into this, just watch the original Blair Witch Project, then go to the theater, and make sure it's a packed house, because there are some scares in this film that will have your skeleton jumping out of your body. I have to say this. The acting in the film is, when you have a film that's supposed to be a mockumentary of something that has really taken place in the real world out there, sometimes they do really good jobs and sometimes they don't. And in the Blair Witch Project, the original, the reason why that film was what it was and made over $200 million based on a $60,000 budget was for many different reasons, but one of them had to be the style that the film was produced. And this new Blair Witch has a $2 million budget on it, and you can clearly see that budget up on the screen. Does that hinder it? Yes, at times I do feel that with that much of budget, they could really do whatever they wanted. In the original, it was a big mess of them just running through the woods and scaring the actors, because the actors actually filmed the movie themselves, and the directors kind of gave them an idea of what they wanted to see, but then they would be outside of the tent shaking it and yelling and screaming and clicking rocks together. In this film, again, spoilers will happen at the end, so it's very hard for me to talk about this. I can say that the acting wasn't up to par with the original for me. I could say that the style of the film was pretty much in tune with the original Blair Witch Project. However, I'll say this because it's not a spoiler. You have people in the woods yet again for a simple reason. He believes, and this is in the trailer, so this isn't a spoiler, but he believes that Heather from the original, his sister, is still alive within the woods. So that's why they go back into the woods. But this time there's a woman with him that's going to film it for her project or whatever. That's not really talked about too much. But they go into the woods with a lot of different technology. So it is filmed in the found footage type way that you're used to. However, I do know that they used crazy rigs on the actors, and it was not actually filmed with the actors. It was filmed with cameramen. The actors had nothing to do with the shots. So that's a different style, a different approach. Then I can't spoil anything, so I can't really talk about the scares in this film. I could tell you this much in the spoiler-free section here, that if you have a girlfriend or you love horror movies, bring her to this, because she will be jumping out of her seat throughout most of the movie. Second half of the movie really does pick up, and that's where it goes into new territory, I can kind of say here without spoiling things. And overall, I have to say, you got to go see Blair Witch Project, or sorry, I keep calling it the Blair Witch Project. You got to go see Blair Witch in the theater. I give it a strong 8 out of 10. It does have issues, which, again, this is very hard for me to talk about because I don't want to give away any of the goddamn movie. It's very hard to say, this was this and this was this. Let me just say, the director of the film and the writer, they clearly understand how suspense works and lead up and jump scares. This isn't poorly made. This by all means isn't a shitty movie at all. There's some problems with the film which I can only go into in the spoiler section. the best part about this film has to be the lore is expanded just a little bit, just enough for you to feel like you're getting something new, because this is essentially a reboot, I'd say almost a remake of the original Blair Witch Project. Not too much is going on in this film other than the witch playing with the characters, and that's something that, you know, this film has to heavily rely on because it is just woods. Every shot looks identical to the last because the backgrounds are simply trees, you know, water and the sky. There's not much to look at. So to be clever in the woods yet again, almost, what is it, 16 years later or something crazy like that, is a feat. And I think they did a really good job. And this is where I'm going to go into the spoilers, because I have to go into the spoilers. I have to do this, and I wanted to keep this review short and sweet. Spoilers are coming right now. So 8 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching the review. If you want to come back after Friday and talk about the rest of the film with me, let's do that. So spoilers, again, are coming right now for the next 3 minutes. Let's talk about the spoilers. The acting in the film based on the witch herself, which I have to say right now is not actually the witch. The witch is never seen in the film, which I was very confused about. So I tweeted to one of the writers, well, the writer of the film, and I asked him, you know, what made you decide to show the witch? And he said, well, we don't show the witch. We show a victim that's fallen in the curse of the witch. And that's what you're seeing on film, essentially. So I thought to myself, that's very confusing, because I could have sworn, I don't know if you guys remember this, but they talk about putting the witch up onto a rack and stretching her body out. And the witch in this, or quote-unquote witch that you see in Blair Witch, looks like she has stretched out arms and legs. So I'm a bit confused about that part of the story. In the original Blair Witch Project, you never saw the witch. And in this film, it was more about the witch being such a huge entity, or her curses being this huge entity, and the idea of her, you know, in the original film, she used to just stand outside the tent, shake it, and throw some blood in a blanket and put it outside your tent, or crack rocks together in the background. And it was very subtle. It was like psychological. In this film, you have a witch who literally is throwing 70-foot trees across the forest, and they slam down into the ground in such an amazing... this isn't really a negative, but I have to say it kind of hurt the film for me, because I was hoping for a more psychological scare, and I feel that some of the gore that you see on screen, for instance, when the character pulls that sort of like thing out of her leg and you see the pus, and I mean, it is literally paint by numbers horror at that point in time in that scene. I thought maybe it'd be cool if that, you know, she's obviously being transformed into the witch, I thought, but no, she isn't, and that really goes nowhere. You really hope for some sort of possession, and maybe she kills somebody or something happens. It just goes further than that, but you don't get that with that character. I gotta say, in closing here, it is a really, really fun ride. The roller coaster that you go on in this film was very, very well thought out, and I have to give it an 8 out of 10 because of that. Some of the positives in the film have to be, definitely, the scares are very well thought out. Give them props for that. The script is here and there. There's not too much to it. It's just throw some kids into the woods, have some scares, and have an ending that really... I wouldn't say it elevates the series. It is essentially the ending that you would expect kind of from a sequel to this. But I think they did a really neat thing with having her have the camera facing away and just being able to look into the viewfinder and see where the witch, quote unquote, because that's not the witch. That's just somebody who fell victim to the curse of the witch, which is very confusing to me, but, you know... Scares are there, that's a plus. Negatives, I have to say the acting isn't spectacular, of course. It's very hard to have a $2 million budget and make it believable when it's supposed to be real, but it's clearly a Hollywood film. The budget also, I have to say, $200 million with the sound edit is spectacular, but I feel like they've turned the Blair Witch less about, you know, the classic creepy Blair Witch. Just, she's not that anymore. She's some sort of bigger entity that's throwing trees around and rattling doors and smashing houses and lights, and it's just a spectacle, which is not a problem, but I don't feel that it fits in the Blair Witch world as much as it should have, and that's where the real negative aspect for me, that's why it's not like 9 out of 10. 10 out of 10 would have been very hard to do. But thank you so much for watching this review. I just don't want to spoil it. I could talk about this for a long time, but let's just cut it there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next review. Thank you so much.